Monica, thank you very much for the introduction. It's great to be back. Special thanks to the organizer for organizing this amazing event. It's always good to be back home. My name is Antanas. I'm of Lithuanian origin, but it just happened that I live in the UK. And I'm here today to talk about code generation in regulated industries. Now, I can't really see the back, but if you guys can raise your hands, who works in regulated industries? So that's either financial, medical. Perfect. Very good. Very good. And other regulated industries. Donatas, I know you work in regulated industries as well. So where's your hand? Perfect. Right. How was your lunch? I was a bit nervous that you can't pick a better topic than talk regulation right after lunch. So if you want to have a nap, be my guest. My slides are not very entertaining, but I will try and make it worthwhile for those who are interested in the challenges we have in those regulated industries. Right, let's go. Right, what is the promise? Everybody talks AI, generative AI, agents. I mean, so many terms, crazy. The promise is that AI coding assistants offer you development, fewer errors, and improved agility, right? So it's a very good promise. How many of you are using code generation assistants? Perfect. What about the peril? So in finance, healthcare, insurance, the code quality is paramount. Code quality, security, compliance. For those who are working in regulated industries, you are aware of how important and non-negotiable data security is, how important the compliance is, and how big are the fines. And that's what slows us down. That's what slows us down because there is a fear to make a mistake. And we're going to talk about that today. So the question is, how do we tap into benefits without introducing unacceptable risk? So I'll try and cover today, starting with demystifying AI code generation. Then we're going to talk about regulatory compliance and challenges. Then we'll look at best practices and how potentially we can overcome those. And we'll look at future possibilities, what code generation assistance can bring. Now, I do thank to my previous speakers who covered most of the information about AI agents. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just to quickly recap, what are the agents, or what is a code assistant? And I have 4 main pillars here. We always start with analysis. So we look at the developer context. We look at the code, we look at the entire project structure, and we look at the prompts. The next step is retrieval. This is where we bring in your internal knowledge, because an LLM, yes, it's a large language model, but the LLM is not aware of your company data, of your regulations, right? It's a very big one. How does LLM know what are the latest and greatest regulations within your industry? Well, it doesn't. It knows the publicly available data, but not the proprietary. So that's where the retrieval comes in. And most of you already know what the RAG is, or retrieval augmented generation, and I'm not going to go into too much detail. The next step is prediction. The LLMs are basically next token or next word predictors. That's how a machine learning model works. And then the last one is the agency. Now, the agency within regulated industries is under a lot of scrutiny. And I don't see agency being adopted anytime soon. But the first 3 are getting there, and we're already seeing some examples and some very big organizations, some big banks already playing around. So hopefully that makes sense and covers demystifying the code generation. Key tools. Now, most of you have used those tools on the screen. Now, those are just examples. The landscape is changing really, really rapidly. So what's relevant today will be obsolete tomorrow. GitHub Copilot, how many of you use that? Most of you probably for your day-to-day work. Probably Windsurf and Cursor people. Gemini Code Assist, it's getting really, really good now. Now, those two products, and Amazon Q, those three products are built by really large organizations, so Microsoft, Google, and AWS. Therefore, the security is already built in because they have decades of experience building enterprise level solutions, and therefore it makes sense that they will deliver that. Now, a very popular IDEs or AI-powered IDEs are Cursor and Windsurf. Cursor and Windsurf users here today? Yes. Now, personally, for my personal projects, I prefer Windsurf and Cursor, but it's a very big but. We always need to consider privacy and intellectual property, because when we ask the question, that prompt goes and the context goes to a third party, and if they don't have specific controls in place, you might be breaching or violating your regulations, depending on the country, depending on the industry you work for. Regulatory tightrope. So I personally work with big banks. So ALM, KYC are very, very big topics. But some of you work for healthcare, therefore data privacy under HIPAA and other regulations depending on the country, and data sovereignty laws, right? For those who are not aware, especially about data sovereignty laws, is that some countries will not allow you to move the data outside of that country. Right? So let's say if we take a global bank, a bank with a name X operates across 50 different countries. Now, between some countries, you can move the data and you can produce the reporting, but some countries, you can't actually extract the data. And there's a lot of different rules and hurdles and red tape, which makes it even more complex and difficult. Now, what are the critical needs for our regulated industries and the regulators? All right, you have to apologize. I'm not an expert in Lithuanian law and Lithuanian regulations, but in the UK we have FCA, we have other regulators like PRA, and for us to win their trust, first of all, we need to be able to have a good auditability, which means we need to have a traceability of code generation, right? And how it goes to those decisions, or how it comes up with the decisions it suggests. Then explainability. Explainability is a very, very, very big one. We've heard a term black box. One of previous speakers mentioned about the black box as well. How does it come with those decisions? How do we know that it made the right ones? It's a very important one. And data privacy. As I mentioned before, your sensitive customer, patient, or proprietary data is paramount. You don't want your IP to leak or your secret source to leak and use for training of future large language models. Key challenges, really quickly go through them. Top barrier, obviously, your regulatory uncertainty and risk management loop. It's across any industry which is regulated. Data leak and security. Again, those challenges, although they are paramount and they're very sensitive topics for regulatory bodies and regulated industries, I think we all should be adapting those best practices, and I'll cover the best practices in a minute, to build better products and have better adoption and trust AI more. You know the saying, rubbish in, rubbish out, right? People tell me, oh yes, but you can't do this or you can't do that, and the LLMs hallucinate. Prove me wrong, please, or let me prove you wrong. Let's connect after and let's have a chat about your specific use case. Insecure code, we've seen that. Accuracy hallucinations, thing I've mentioned about rubbish in, rubbish out. Governance gaps, right? we're talking about the context. If you're not providing LLM the right context, it will hallucinate, and therefore you can get in trouble. And another one, the last one in the list, is talent shortage. It is very difficult. Now, most of us are here are engineers, developers, so we are experts in our field, and obviously with AI, we are, trying to adopt that as well. But when we look globally, it is really, really hard for organizations to find people who are good, not only in terms of their domain expertise, but also understand how AI works and how to connect it all together to manage the risks and compliance. Anybody sleeping yet? The back? Not yet. Right, regulated versus non-regulated. We understand the differences. The difference is quite obvious. Regulated, moving really slow, although spending a lot of money into testing, building POCs, but because of regulation, it pulls you down, right? So it's your blocker. And non-regulated are much faster in terms of adoption, and they usually address governance issues reactively rather than proactively because they're not regulated, not much at stake. Common use cases. Everybody knows about code generation, debugging. They're the most common use cases. That's across both regulated and non-regulated. Code refactoring is a big one. I have worked on a code refactoring platform, or rather framework, which we built in-house last year. And that was RPG, which is very similar to COBOL, into Java. Now, we've achieved about 60%, but the latest studies show that now the LLMs are so good, again, given the right context, you can achieve up to 98, 99% accuracy, which is just crazy, right? When you think about it and look about it, you're like, now we don't have a problem with our legacy code anymore. Test generation, who likes writing tests? Some people do, I know. And documentation. Everybody hates writing documentation. So LLMs are great at it because they're large language models. So anything to do with a large with language, just shove it in and get it to help you. Let's look at some best practices and how we can overcome some of the challenges we have in regulated industries. Strong governance is foundational, right? There's in any process, it's not just development, any process within regulated industry is under extreme scrutiny, and every step is looked into at very detail. So when we implement our solutions, we need to make sure that we have policies, processes, and controls, and we need to involve our senior stakeholders, right? Our CEO, board level people. First of all, upskill them and explain them the benefits, but also explain them the opportunities and security we will be wrapping our solutions into. Human in the loop is non-negotiable. For those who are not aware about the term human in the loop, is where we have a real person review what a code assistant has done. Now, I like to think of code assistants as assistants, right? As your peer developers, not pure generators. It is possible, the technology is there. We can go and we can develop a fully autonomous system which will write code. So you have multi-agent system. One will be your PMO, another will be maybe a team of developers, a third one will be documentation agents, and so on. So you could do end-to-end. But that would not work in regulated industries because, first of all, there is a bit of mistrust. Second of all, it will be super difficult to trace. And third is that most of us will end up without our jobs. Right? So let's always think of human in the loop. And this is how we win this battle between the governance and the innovation. Secure SDLC integration, right? So when we integrate code generation assistance into our SDLC, we shouldn't just embed, sorry, we should embed, not bolt on. And what I mean by that is don't have it as a separate function, don't have it as a separate process. Do integrate that into your CI/CD pipelines and use CI/CD checks or your CI checks for your SAST, TAST, SCA, and other checks, right? So do integrate that into your life cycle, which will make it part of the bigger solution, right? So again, think about your AI code assistance as just a part of the team. And robust testing. So we always need to test our LLMs. We need to test the process. We need to test documentation for accuracy. There's a lot of moving parts. Use golden list to test prompts and scenarios, right? So when you automate your testing, have a library, have a repository of your golden prompts, which you can test against, and then you can compare the accuracy of your solution as it evolves. Data management and customization. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. For architects, especially data architects, you are aware that strategic data architecture is again paramount. Garbage in, garbage out, right? Purposeful fine-tuning, which means that it's a domain-specific knowledge, right? So you bring in, again, if we go back to the first slide where I had the pillars, that's your retrieval, and this is when you feed the LLM or feed the context from your own repositories. Now, a big one is ROI. How do we measure ROI on our Gen AI? It's a famous quote. Now, measuring overall ROI remains very difficult for many industries and many organizations. It requires resolving calculation challenges. Now, what studies show, again, if we look at GitHub Copilot, they claim a 55% faster coding. We have 20 to 26% gains reported in financial services. Right? So that's your banks, insurance, that's the domain I work in. We have significant time saved reported, 5 to 6 hours a week with Cody. Right? Times and cost savings. Everybody thinks about cost, right? Like depending on the level you work at or who your bosses are, usually you will hit, okay, what is the ROI? Why would we invest in that technology? Now, Boston Consulting Group says that it's 30 to 50% addressed of the tech function costs, right? Banks started getting significant savings. So HSBC, one of the clients I work with, 1.5 billion of analyzed by the end of 2026, which is next year. So we do a lot of POCs, a lot of teams adopting it. Big corporations are very slow moving, again, because of regulation, but it is happening. JP Morgan targeting 2 billion value from AI. I mean, the numbers are crazy. And beyond efficiency, we can improve code quality. We can free up the developers for innovations rather than writing tests or documentation. Right? Well, let's not just automate the entire thing, but let's automate the mundane tasks first, which are simple to do, and they're not critical on your critical path where you could get into problem with your regulators. What are the future possibilities? I think that regulation-aware AI is what we'll see come out soon. That will be a mix of industry-specific models. So you've heard of small language models. So you would have a vertical AI which is specifically trained on a specific task. Obviously, agents, we're already adopting them, and we'll see that grow across all of the industries regardless. And the balancing act, this is a very important one because we need to continuously balance innovation speed with the compliance rigor. And that's what kind of slows us down at the moment. But I do believe that soon enough, we will get to the point where we can enjoy the benefits and we can exploit the technology to create greater things. Right, just to sum up what I've talked to just now. What's the transformative potential? So AI coding assistants offer real productivity and innovation benefits for regulated industries. That's again across the board, not only regulated. Today I'm talking just about the regulated because this is the industry I kind of represent, but I believe that that's across all of the industries. Obviously, significant hurdles we talked about: compliance, security, accuracy, AP, auditability. Governments are critical challenges, and this is what slows us down. The path to success is quite simple. Adapt a programmatic risk-aware approach, prioritize robust governance, human oversight with your human in the loop, right? Embed security through your SDLC. Use your pipelines, use your existing checks. It's just another component of your SDLC. And manage data carefully. So make sure that your data is accurate, clean, you don't have any PII or any other sensitive information in there, and you'll get great results. So the goal is to leverage AI to augment human capabilities, driving value without compromising trust in regulatory adherence. Now, I want to leave you with this quote by Winston Churchill, where success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. So let that sink in, and I wish you all great rest of the day and building amazing solutions.
Thank you so much.
And now take some questions.
We have 3 questions coming
Three
in.
questions, 3 minutes.
3 questions, 3 minutes. Okay, so Paulus is asking, if I'm using LLM to generate a small code snippet, why would the regulator need explanation on why LLM generated these couple code rows?
So I'm not aware of the person's previous experience, but within regulatory environment and regulatory industries, you have, first of all, you have a lot of different functions. For the big organization or like a global bank, if you're writing code for trading systems or systems which produce regulatory reports, they're under a lot of scrutiny. Therefore, every single line needs to be audited and explained. Now, there are tools we build which are less important, let's say, from the regulator's point of view, and therefore you would not need to explain. So I hope that answers your question. It depends on the use case.
Okay, so Mindugas is asking how to deploy AI agent solutions in regulated companies. Many regulated companies have strict IT policies limiting ability to just spin a VM.
Yes. Yes, you can't just spin the VM in, again, in regulated environments. There is a lot of scrutiny around security. Now, if you're spinning up a VM to host your own small language model or even a large language model, maybe you've got a cluster of GPUs in your data center. As long as that data does not leave your perimeter, you're fine. So yes, it is possible, and yes, we do train our own models for various things, right? Like risk calculations and other data mapping activities.
Okay, a regulation slow down progress was said by late Ocean Depth's CEO. Do we really need fast and progress in AI in heavily regulated industries?
Yes, so that was the talk. That's what the talk was about, is that regulation does slow down the innovation within regulated industries. But we're on the right path. And what my aim was for today's talk is to equip you with some ideas, some, let's say, buzzwords we could use when we talk to our stakeholders within regulated industries. Because as developers, architects, it is our responsibility to translate the technical concepts to human language, right? Don't forget that. We're all great developers, and it's great. But when we talk to our clients and customers and stakeholders, it's like talking gibberish.
Okay, final question. Did you get questions around model interpretability from regulators? If it is an issue, one would be quite limited to certain type of models.
I've not heard specifically about models. There is a lot of scrutiny about data leaving because the main concern is, first of all, would an LLM hallucinate and produce malicious code or inaccurate data? So that's number one. And number two, where does that data go? Most of the CSPs or big companies, they host their models. Therefore, your data is leaving your premises and goes to the provider. Now, if that provider hasn't got right controls in place, hasn't got right security certifications, and is not in an approved list, then that creates an issue. And again, it depends on the use case, because if we're using publicly available LLMs, then the use cases will be very small and limited to a very non-sensitive data. If we're dealing with sensitive data, then the path is to host your own LLM within your own premises. And that could be either a paid one, closed source, or an open source, which is a more or easier to explain.